Alright boys, Dcroft here, and today we've got my top 5 tips to help you guys pass the ball and win more in CFB25. These are going to go over the 5 most important things that you guys need to know whenever you pass the ball. This is going to be applicable for any formation, and I promise you, this is going to help you out. One quick little thing though, at the start of the first tip video, my camera does glitch out for half a second. I do apologize. I don't actually realize it until I get done editing these videos. But with that being said, I hope that this video does help you guys out. If you guys like these videos, make sure you guys like and subscribe. So for the first tip in this video, I do want to break down your guys' settings for passing, and I'm going to make sure that I show you guys pros and cons of each one. Firstly, I will say I do use placement, passing slowdown off, that doesn't even really matter, pass lead increase on none, reticle speed at 7, and then I have my reticle and meter visibility both as user only. I do think these are the best passing settings in the game, but let me just go ahead and talk about the pros and cons of each one. So classic passing I think is going to be the easiest to learn, especially if you're just like a beginner, right? If you're somebody like that's just playing the game for the first time, like CFB again this year, Classic's going to be the easiest. You don't have to worry about freeforming, revamped. It's going to be very easy to like lob passes, bullet passes. The only thing on classic passing, it is difficult to throw posts. That's the only thing I will say. I have had issues on classic passing of throwing posts before, specifically posts on the break. You know, if you're trying to throw like a post like later on in the play, not too hard to do. But if you're throwing a post on the break, very often, I will say like it will just typically be an overthrow. Like, let me see, I can't get the clip right here, but you know, it is a difficult thing in specific situations that you can find yourself on offense. So again, if you're a beginner player just getting back into this game, I do think classic passing is going to be just the simplest. You know, there isn't really much to even explain about this. It is just going to be the simplest. Another thing about classic passing, none of these other settings matter too. If you turn on classic passing, that's really the only setting that matters. Now for revamp passing, placement and accuracy, and placement, these other settings do actually matter a little bit here. So revamp passing, now here's the thing about revamp passing. I do not like revamp passing. I've been very adamant I don't like revamp passing throughout the entirety of this year. Now you might be wondering why I don't like revamp passing. I find it very, very difficult to bullet pass. I just don't really get the greatest bullet pass animations on revamp passing. You know, can you master this and make like insane throws, for like 1 out of like every 25 throws that you can't do on like a placement and accuracy classic placement? Yes, you can. I just don't think the risk reward is there, and it's just I just do find this like a difficult feature to use in this game. I think it almost overcomplicates passing a little bit too much, and you will just notice like a lot of lofted passes, especially like on streak routes. Now, it does do something really well where it is a lot easier, I think, to hit like a deeper pass down the field that needs to be lofted, right? If you have like a step on a defender, it does throw like a very, very pretty lofted ball. Like these lofted balls, in my opinion, now granted, I'm throwing in double coverage, so kind of ignore that. It does have a very good trajectory. I think in terms of like just the trajectory it's on, it does have the best trajectory of deep passes of any of the settings in this game. Like right here again, like you will see like the trajectory of this ball, it is perfect. I don't think you'll ever miss this. And when we get to placement and accuracy, one of the biggest issues on placement and accuracy I do hear people talking about is actually just how do you hit a streak route, right? You will never have that issue on revamp, so that's a plus. But a lot of these like underneath routes, like for example, let's just say I was talking about like a standard curl route, right? I just like, man, like every time I try to throw like a curl route like this, it just like, now granted, it's obviously covered. I want to make sure that we're not really focusing on throwing open people here. We're talking about just the passing features. It just doesn't get to the spot that I really want it to on a consistent basis. I'm actually yellowing a couple of these too. Typically the goal is to have it in that blue range too. Probably something I should have mentioned earlier. You do want to always have it in that blue range. If you get to yellow, that's what you want to kind of stay away from. You want to always have it be right before it gets to the yellow. That's that would be my personal tip. But yeah, you also don't want to hold this down. Very important, you don't want to hold this down. Let me actually show you guys what happens when you just hold it all the way down. It should be a yellow, or it can also potentially sometimes be a red pass. That's something you want to stay away from. It doesn't necessarily guarantee it to be like inaccurate or anything like that, but it's not something that you guys really should be doing. You want to let it go a little bit earlier. And as I said, I just don't like this for throwing underneath passes within this game. Now, next setting that we are going to be talking about, and these are basically the same, by the way, placement and accuracy. Now, the biggest thing I always get feedback on is how in the world do you throw a streak on placement and accuracy, or placement? Biggest thing about placement and accuracy is your reticle speed actually matters. Now, pass speed increase is the first thing we're going to be focusing on, though, and that is going to be set to none. I've had it on small before. Small makes you overthrow the ball a lot. You don't want to do that. You want to have it on none. Now, reticle speed, and this is for my players that struggle to throw a streak route. If you struggle to throw a streak route, you use 3. That should be your reticle speed. It's going to make it a lot easier to throw a streak, and what you should be looking for when throwing a streak, I kid you not, you take your left pass lead, right? Oops, messed up right there. This guy right here. This is my left thumbstick. Typically, when you throw a streak, you're going to jam it all the way up. You're going to see my screen move, by the way. But you're going to jam it like straight up like this. You do not want to jam it up. You actually don't even want to do anything. I kid you not. Let's just say like square was on my streak. This guy right here. You literally tap square. You don't do anything else. I promise you that is how I've thrown streaks this entire year. I've found when trying to pass lead streaks on placement or placement and accuracy, they tend to get overthrown a reasonable amount. Now, the thing for me on placement and accuracy is if you are able just to master streaks, it gives you the best of everything. I think it is by far the best overall passing feature in this game. Very easy to use. Quickly go ahead and talk about freeforming. So freeforming is going to be this guy right here. It's going to be left trigger or left bumper. And essentially what you guys are going to be looking for is that is your extra boost on a pass lead. I think they're actually in man coverage right here. So this is a great example. And essentially what you're looking for is the only time you ever want to freeform, this is my rule, is if you want a slight boost on your pass lead. Only ever time, right? So let's just say you have a defender that's like a step behind you, right? You want to give that a slight pass lead so it's only where your receiver can catch it. So again, right here, this is a good example of when I would freeform. And you can see that my reticle is all the way out to the far right there. So I'm actually going to go ahead and clip this for you guys and show you guys what I mean. Let's go ahead, roll the tape here for a second. And if you go pause, right? You can see my reticle, right? So my reticle is that little circle inside that big circle right there. Essentially what I am doing here is I am holding left trigger and I am forcing my left analog stick all the way out to the sideline. Now, very important though, you don't want to do this. The only time you really don't want to freeform is when you are at the sideline. If you're at the sideline and if I was to do the exact same thing, I would just throw the ball out of bounds. So important to note that too. If you go ahead and see, my reticle doesn't even move a ton, and this is a very important thing. Pass leading is a very minor thing. You don't want to pass lead a ton. It's always like a very minor thing. So you guys can see I almost moved the spot of where the ball is going to be thrown by maybe 2 to 3 yards. I think what a lot of people do is they get overly aggressive and they almost pass lead at like 5, 7 yards, and that's when you start to see the overthrows. You don't want to do that in this year's game. Other games, you want to do that. CFB25, you don't want to do that. As you can see, perfect little area, essentially giving us that extra boost, right, away from that man defensive back. We're able to make the catch, get a good animation, and realistically, if I was trying to finish out the play, we'd be able to turn that upfield and potentially get some more yards. Now, one thing that I will say is on placement, it doesn't matter if you just hold down the button, but on placement and accuracy, and this is the only difference between the two, everything that I've said so far is applicable into placement. The only difference between placement and accuracy is there's essentially a window to blue pass. And essentially what blue passing is going to do for you, it's going to allow for better throws. Now, one thing that I will say is if you have abilities on your quarterback, I personally would just be rocking placement. If you don't have abilities on your quarterback, I still rock placement personally. But I do understand people rocking placement and accuracy if you don't have placement or throwing abilities on your quarterback, because it does allow for essentially like a higher, I guess, like skill gap passing system. I still think it's a little bit too random personally, but I do get asked that question a lot too. So right here, I'll go ahead and show you guys what I mean. Essentially what blue passing is, and it's also green passing, is there's a little window. You're going to see that meter go above there. So let me again, we're going to do the same thing, just clip this right here. There's essentially a little meter above. And that meter above is essentially going to allow us to have a window of potentially getting a better pass throw. So if I go ahead and pass, you guys can see, we're looking at that second line on that yellow meter. You want to let go of the button in between that line and the very bottom of that passing, I guess like semicircle. As you can see, I hold on to it a little bit long, so instead of getting a blue pass, we just get a standard green pass right there, which means we still got like a boost to accuracy, but it wasn't like a perfect accuracy. Blue is perfect, right? So blue is going to be that perfect. Let me go ahead and see if I can just get a blue right here. It's been so long since I've honestly used that feature. And yeah, right there. So that's a perfect blue pass right there. And a blue pass is never going to have any form of inaccurate. It's also going to be very effective for throwing on the run. If you're ever on the run, very, very effective for that. It's also easier on shorter throws. You're going to have a larger window on shorter throws. Deeper throws, you're going to have a wider window. You guys can see, though, that time my little arrow, I let go of it just a half second earlier. And letting go of it a half second earlier is going to give me that blue pass animation. Right here, though, I'll go ahead and show you guys what I was talking about the streak, though. They are actually currently pressing. So, again, I'm going to show you guys this, like, I kid you not. I am literally going to hit this button and hit square. You guys can see Isaiah Bond is on my fade. We're going to hit this button. I kid you not. I'm just going to hit square. I actually get an inaccurate right there. This is why I personally do like placement more, by the way, because you do get random inaccurates like that on this when you loft pass. Actually, a great little tip for you guys there. But as you guys can see, I kid you not, I don't pass lead or anything. As you guys just saw, I literally just tap the button. Don't pass lead. I don't do anything like that. Obviously, use placement. I think my reticle was probably like a little bit off right there because of my inaccurate. Let's go ahead and watch this actually back one more time just so you guys can see the rest of tip 1 right here. So as you guys can see, right, and this is important, you can't blue pass on lofted passes. You can only blue pass on bullet passes. It's just not something you can do on a lofted pass. And as you guys can see, we get an orange right here. With that being said, though, we actually still get like a reasonably good enough throw. The biggest thing, right, if this was underthrown a little bit more, could have easily been a pick right there. Obviously, our reticle, I think at his standard spot, was in the perfect position. Let me go ahead and just show you guys again what I mean by this. Again, the CPU is probably going to play it right here just because they are a little bit backed off. But again, I kid you not, right? I'm going to look at you guys this entire time. We go boom, and that is it. That is how I throw a streak. You guys can see perfectly in stride. That is literally all I do to throw a streak. No moving of my left stick, no freeforming, no nothing like that. So if that is something that is helpful for you guys, make sure that that is something you guys implement in your game, because I kid you not, I get comments on that all the time. With that being said, let's get into the second tip. Real quick, boys, if you guys are a Madden or a CFB player and want to have more fun on the game and win more, throw touchdowns like these, and then also bag the most annoying of offenses, make sure you guys check out civil.gg, where I just dropped my tournament winning CFB25 scheme. We recently did a survey that said 99.2% of players that sign up win more games. Make sure you guys use code DCROFT to save you 30% off at the checkout. Link is in the top of the description, and you'll get instant access to all of the schemes on the website. So the second tip is going to be highballing. Now, highballing should only be used really on routes over the middle of the field. So if you're attacking in between like the numbers, right? That's the only time I would ever really highball. I don't really ever highball a streak. Very important to know. A lot of times I think people actually think I highball streaks. I don't really ever highball a streak. So just kind of going back to what I was just talking about, I never really highball this route. Now, actually right there was kind of an insane highball, but it's not really something I do a ton. Biggest thing about highballing, right, and ironically we actually got the perfect example right here, is you want to highball a route to make it so the defensive back isn't going to be in range of picking the ball off. I will also say that you can highball sideline routes. I think a lot of times you just don't need to personally. So let's go ahead and just roll the tape though on this highball in general. So if you guys can see right here, that we basically have this like little window, right? We have this little window. So this is actually a great example of when to highball, and also a situation where you could actually highball outside of the numbers. If we do not highball this defensive back is going to have a chance of getting there, right? Does he get there if I don't highball? I'm not exactly sure, right? But essentially what you're trying to do is you want to change a 50-50 ball into essentially just it's either you're catching it or nobody's catching it. And that's essentially what this does right here. Essentially, my guy is going to catch the ball right here or nobody's going to catch it. Now, you really don't want to do this on like drag routes, I will say. For example, like if there's no real point of like highballing my running back or anything like that. Any like short route under 10 yards, no real point. Again, like no real point to high point Isaiah Bond right there. You want to make sure you get good run after the catch animations too. So again, right here, like what's the point of like highballing like this route right here? There's really not a ton, right? You want to just have those high balls typically be when it's trying to hit over the linebackers and kind of into that like that second and third level of the defense. So typically a lot of the times when you will see a high ball is like on a post, right? So like typically like right there, right? That is a great time to high ball. That is probably going to be the most commonly used high ball route that you guys do use. So let's just go ahead and talk about why I highballed there. So what I see right here is obviously I'm seeing the defensive, I think they are in a cover 3 shell right here. I have this kind of like lurking linebacker over the middle of the field. Now, highballing also allows you to throw the ball a little bit earlier because you don't have to wait for the receiver to clear out as long. Obviously, because you're putting the ball at a different trajectory than what is currently being thrown on a just standard bullet pass. So again, if you guys kind of watch right here, I'm able to get the ball out probably just like a half second earlier, right? I'm basically throwing this ball, right? If this is a bullet pass, probably a pick right here. Probably going to be a pick 7 out of 10 times. By me highballing, though, what you guys can see is this linebacker right here. He's just never going to have a chance, right? He's just never going to have a chance. Typically, this is going to be a user. Other good tip for you guys, very good to highball over a user. But again, typically this is going to be a user, but if it is a CPU defender, again, you get the high ball right there. Now, and the biggest thing about this is we really don't care about these passes and the run after catch animations on these passes. If we get a good one, that's great, right? But if you don't, right, and let's just say that we catch the ball and we never pick up any extra yards after this. We are currently at the 27-yard line and we are throwing the ball. Let's just say this is a 25-yard game. Let's just say this is a 25-yard game. And you don't really care on a 25-yard gain if you're getting any extra run after catch. So that's one of the big reasons why I recommend this for you guys, is this is going to be such an effective thing to be able to just, again, attack kind of that above that second level. You're going to be able to get reasonably good catch animations. I want to make sure that's clear. It's not necessarily that you're not going to get good catch animations. You're not going to get good run after the catch animations, but you are going to just get good catch animations in general. I will say, like, defensive backs, especially CPU defensive backs, they really struggle at defending high balls too. They just don't get the greatest animations ever. Like honestly, even on this clip right here, this is a great example. We've actually got like 2 perfect clips right here for you guys. Watch 13. Like, realistically in real life, like, I would think that 13 would attack this ball a lot better. You know, I still think this is a catch, right? But, you know, you would think that 13 would at least make a play. If you bullet pass, typically the defensive backs are a little bit better when it comes to awareness on bullet passes. So, again, another really good reason to highball. And yeah, that's really the only time you're ever going to highball. As I said, you never really want to highball sideline routes. Now, again, can you highball sideline routes? Yes. You're going to see something like that happen. You're typically going to get inaccurates, though. Again, maybe every once in a while you'll highball a streak or something like that. It's very, very rare. You know, the example I showed earlier is probably one of the very few times I'll ever highball a streak. But yeah, maybe every once in a while. Right here, again, tight end post over the middle. And right there, that's another great example. Even though we didn't catch that, that's essentially putting it at a place only we can catch it, right? This is either I catch it or nobody catches it, right? We got a half step right here. We're going to highball in like this area of the field. And the defensive back really doesn't have body positioning, and he's just never going to get to this ball. So it kind of eliminates a lot of the risk that you can potentially have of throwing interceptions, of when to use highballing correctly. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into the third tip. Tip number 3 is going to be about free-forming. Now, we already talked about this a little bit in tip number 1, but I do just want to break down kind of everything about free-forming you guys do need to know. So first off, in case you forgot, to free-form, you have to be on placement or placement and accuracy, and it's going to be the left trigger or the L2 button. That is how you free-form. With that being said, though, I really don't free-form. I think one of the biggest misconceptions about this feature is that pro players use it every single play. That is just not the case. I kid you not. I might freeform 10 to 15% of my passes throughout the entire game. Maybe a little bit higher than that. Maybe like 1 out of every 5 passes, around 20% I will freeform. But it's very rare that I will freeform. What I will say about freeform and why it is good is it is a skill-based feature, right? You can essentially throw the ball exactly where you want it to be every single time. Now, quickly, just in case you guys forgot, right, we'll go over these settings again. Placement, pass speed increase on none, reticle speed at 3 to 12, again, depending on how you feel comfortable throwing streaks. User only on meter and reticle visibility. So everything you need to know about the settings right there, in case you missed it earlier. Now, when it comes to freeforming in general, I just want to talk about, again, just the general circle in terms of what we are looking for. So if we look at the circle right here, we go to instant replay, or not instant replay, we actually need to clip this for you guys. Again, it's a little bit different style of video. I'll be honest, I rarely ever do this in these types of tip videos, but I don't really know a better way for you guys to break this down. I feel like instant replays are the easiest thing for you guys to see. So right here, as you guys can see, we essentially have 2 different things we're looking at. We're looking at that big circle and then that little circle. Little circle is where the ball is going to go. That big circle is that range we can throw it on. Our pass speed increase is on none, which means we can't actually get that ball outside of that bigger circle. If you were to have it on, for example, a small, right? So let's just go ahead and show you guys what it would look like on a small, right? When we hold down left trigger or L2, you are going to essentially then be able to have that pass outside of the circle. Again, it's so minuscule, it's really even hard to tell. And that's one of the things, man. This is why a lot of pro players, that we really don't freeform a ton. Oh, wrong. Not instant replay. Again, we want this replay actually. But again, you guys can see right here, it's slightly outside. You can see even our half circle, right? It's maybe 50% outside of that bigger circle, where before it just wasn't. And again, for me personally, I've started to have issues with overthrows when I do have pass speed increase on small. So it's not something I really use, and it's really not something I would recommend you guys using. It was one of the first things I kind of noticed this year about CFB25 was placement and accuracy just wasn't a feature that I thought was very necessary. I thought there was actually a period in time that I was going to be on classic passing this entire year. But again, that's kind of what you guys can see right there in terms of, free forming. And, you can mess around with small. Please don't mess around with anything else. I will quickly show you guys what it looks like when, let's just have pass speed increase on none, or actually large. There used to be a one called Infinity. And Infinity was hilarious. But again, this is what can happen. So you guys can see, right? We have it on large then. And then you guys can see where our reticle went right there. Our reticle was, let's just say our reticle was kind of all over the place right there. So boom, again, you guys can see that smaller circle, right? We have it on large though. By us having it on large, we're able to have that smaller circle leave that bigger circle by a massive range, allowing for an overthrow, right? So never use large, never use medium. I don't care what anybody else has told you before. You don't want to use those settings. I promise you they're going to cause more harm than good. So again, none or small, going to be the 2 that if you want to mess with 2, do those 2. But I'm personally always going to be on none. But again, really pass leading, all I do is with the left analog stick right here. So again, left analog stick, this guy right here. And again, I'm really just using this guy. I just will pass lead to essentially give myself an extra boost, right? If it's a better run after catch animation, better possession catch animation on the sideline, It's really all I'm looking for. I'm not really looking for anything in terms of this guy, the left trigger L2 button. It's really just very standard stuff. Again, like, you know, I see this sideline route, so I'm going to just have that reticle a little bit pushed towards that sideline, just to allow me to get that perfect possession catch animation. Again, never going to freeform a sideline route. Freeform sideline routes means you throw the ball out of bounds. You don't want that. It's not good. Streak routes, never going to freeform. You guys know yourselves. If you freeform a streak route, you're going to overthrow them. You know, the only time I will really ever freeform is probably going to be a drag, post, maybe a curl. So like a good example would be a curl route. So something you can do, like what a lot of pro players will do, is actually, well, if I don't get instantly sacked right there, a lot of pro players will like freeform this all the way down. So what I mean by that is that they'll go ahead and something like this. So, and again, like, it's not exactly the greatest situation ever to throw the ball right there. But you are essentially trying to put that ball, like, way in front of your receiver. So you're trying to put this ball, like, instead of, like, the ball going all the way here, you're trying to get the ball, like, almost, like, into this area of the field. And you can see, right, like, I actually get what I wanted. It's just there's a defender right there anyways. He's coming back to the ball, so that is a plus, right? And that's one of the great ways you can utilize this, right? Obviously, you just don't throw at a user defender. Is the biggest thing that I will say. With that being said, let's get into tip number 4. So tip number 4 is going to be catch animations. Biggest thing about Madden CFB that's different than real life is there's not really like a one-on-one kind of like aggressive catch that you guys can make. So basically, triangle or Y is going to be our aggressive catch button. Square or X is going to be our run after the catch animation, and then X or A is going to be our possession catch animation. You guys want to stay away from aggressive catching. It's really not that great, and a good example, right, would be like something like this, like Isaiah Bond one-on-one. Like maybe in real life, like let's just say that you have like a Nick Harbor, Tech McMillan's a good example, like a big body receiver. You really just don't want to be using like that feature. It's something you guys want to stay away from. It's not going to be great. And I think you're going to run into more issues trying to aggressive catch than anything else. Now, when it comes to the other two, it's going to be run after catch animations. It's going to be possession catch animations. It's going to be super straightforward rules that you guys can follow. If you guys are wide open, run after the catch. If you guys are not wide open, possession catch. It's very simple, very standard, but you would be surprised at how many times people just don't do the simple things. So like right here, Isaiah Blunt, wide open, you want to run after the catch right there. The only exception is like maybe it's a big fourth down, right? And maybe you just want to like, you know, you throw past the sticks, you know it's a wide open dot, and you just want to possession catch it to ensure you get by for the next set of downs. Probably the only exception to that. Sideline rights you do typically want a possession catch. So if like I'm throwing a route like this late, right? And even though he is wide open, if you're throwing a route that late, you do just want a possession catch, something like that. You know, if I throw it like a half second early, though, you know, we can run after the catch there. So again, something that you want to be mindful of. Only other thing that I can really think of when it comes to this is if you guys have sure hands, platinum sure hands, you can basically run after the catch everything with platinum sure hands. They're basically guaranteed to catch the ball if they do get their two hands on it. Now, there is going to be exceptions, right? You know, there is going to be a potential time where you can drop that. I'm not going to say it's 100% automatic, but you should feel very comfortable of a platinum sure hands player always being able to run after the catch. But again, that's really it when it comes to these three features. Very important to know, you know, when it comes to something like this, is that you just don't want to aggressive catch. You don't want to try to like 50-50 balls, right? You know, 50-50 balls really are more like 20-80 balls, 10-90 balls. You know, they're going to be consistently broken up. Even with the jackpot ability on offense, you might be asking like, hey, D-Croft, can I use the jackpot ability? Is that really like a 50-50? Answer is honestly no. So do just be mindful of that. Now, for our very last tip, we are going to be talking about pocket presence. Now, I kid you not, what I do for pocket presence is exactly what's in this video, and it's what's made me have some of the best pocket presence the entire time I've played Madden and CFB. I will go to my primary formation that I run. Typically going to be this year, going to be bunch strong offset. On defense, you guys can see at the bottom, it's like there. Like if you like point like a line there. You guys can see that there is random play if you press in on the left stick. So if you press in on the left stick, that's going to be random play. Now, I will say you can pick like a specific play, but for me personally, I just like to do a random play. So random play like this. All I am going to do is I'm going to consistently send 5 routes out at first. We're not going to worry about blocking a running back or anything like that. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to stare at my offensive line. Like, I'm not going to look at any route. I'm going to stare at my offensive line. The first part of the process is going to be just practicing maneuvering against, more often than not, just a 4-man pass rush. Now, what is kind of cool is the CPU every once in a while will blitz you, but it's going to give you just a lot of standard different 4-man looks that you're going to have to work at maneuvering in the pocket. So, really what I'm going to do is, at the start of every play, I'm like a little bit twitchy, right? I'll almost be holding up my left stick, just like a half like a little bit like that, right? So this is going to give me a little bit more control. It's also going to prevent like auto drop backs. So you're not going to have like a standard drop, right? If you just like hold it up, just like a little, right? And then essentially from there, I'm going to read the pocket. Now, what I'm going to do for you guys right here is I'm actually going to call out when I hike the play where I should be going and see if I get right or if I get wrong. So I'm going to hike the play. I see middle, and I'm just going to send it here. Now, essentially what I just saw right there, everyone was just super well blocked up. There was no point of me even moving in the pocket. You don't want to have just bad movement in the pocket and just walk into somebody if you can just stand strong in the pocket like this. You guys will see right here, everyone's just stonewalled. Like, truthfully, there was no pocket presence I needed on this play. Everyone was just perfectly blocked. You guys can see my routes have all well developed too. By the time I end up getting sacked, that's a great amount of time in the pocket that we did have. Hopefully we do get a little bit of a better pass rush right here. So again, same thing right here. I'm going to move left right here. Now, I did call that out a little bit late, but why did I move left right there? Essentially what I'm seeing by just staring at the offensive line is I kind of noticed my right tackle's initial animation looked like he was going to lose that animation. Also, the leftist screen linebacker, so this guy right here, I noticed he also dropped in coverage. So it kind of just gives me a double team with these 2 players on number 7 right here, kind of making it easier for me to sidestep this way, right? So again, right here, I kind of noticed this swim animation, right? And I noticed I have a double team animation on this side. So initially, my first step should just be to the left right here. And you guys can see, right? First step, just a half step to the left. Now, you guys might be wondering, well, Daniel, why didn't you just step up in the pocket like this? The reason why I didn't step up in the pocket on this play is we had 2 one-on-one animations, right? More than likely, my one-on-one animations are going to shed, right? Like, this guy sheds right here. And then if we step up in the pocket, this guy's honestly probably just going to disengage, and it's going to be an easy sack. We also then had the initial pressure coming from that side too, where, this guy could have easily just, potentially had that disengage and then potentially sack you there. But again, that's why I initially went left on that time. Right here, I'm seeing a little bit of I think they're actually going to be in a blitz right here. Yeah, so they're going to be blitzing. They're blitzing off the right. Typically, if they're blitzing off the right, it's pretty standard. You just want to sidestep that other way. Again, so they were blitzing off the right there. You guys can see I'm seeing pressure to the right. I'm seeing this one guy walking free right here. So again, I might as well just step to the left. I'm hoping I get like a couple of different clips here for you guys. But again, kind of just have to step to the left right here. One thing that I will say is that like blitzing slot corners kind of take bad angles at time. But, if this guy just took the correct angle, like this this gap right here, yeah, that's just an easy sack. And again, you kind of also have to live if your players just do get shedded like this. Like if they have a one-on-one shed animation and you're making the correct movement in the pocket, you have to live with that. Because the reality of it is like, let's just hypothetically say that, I go to the right here. I'm just getting sacked anyways. Like I'm just going to get sacked from this shedding guy anyways. Yeah, and let's see what we have here against probably a standard 4-man pass rush if I had to guess. This is a wider set, so typically when you see wider sets, this is when you're going to want to just stay in the pocket. It's either going to be stay or you're going to just step straight up the middle right here. But again, middle, we're just going to stay right here. Maneuver a little bit to the left just off of that second set shed animation they got. But again, pretty standard stuff, right? They were in a wide set. They're not going to have much of an interior pass rush animation. We're just going to step up, kind of try to allow these 2 edge rushers to run by us right here. And then you guys can see that we had a little bit of pocket to the left right here and to take the side step left. One big thing that I will say is I very rarely sprint in the pocket, so I'll just show you guys this here quickly. Like I very rarely like sprint like this in the pocket unless there is like truly a wide open lane. If there's a wide open lane, that's when I will hold down sprint, right? So like maybe like a side step and sprint. But typically if you're like sprinting in the pocket, that's what will happen more often than not, is that the defensive lineman will just kind of get that instant animation like shed, right? Because I'm kind of just running right into him, right? You know, I don't think you should ever go into a play just thinking you are going to sprint. They're only sending 3 here. We're going to actually take a half step to the right there. Then just get down right there. 3-man pass rushes are honestly pretty bad in this game, so that's not the greatest clip ever. We'll show you guys one more. Let's see if I can get one more clip for you guys. Again, really just looking at nothing but the offensive line. And then, yeah, this is probably one of those plays where you could take off, right? But even then, right, if you sprint, like, more often than not, you're going to get sacked. The thing I will say is if you really want to take off in the pocket, you almost have to, like, step up a little bit. So, like, step up and then go, just to get your momentum going a little bit. You don't want to instantly hold sprint. You want to, like, take that half step forward and then go. So this is really the last thing I want to break down for you guys in terms of what I do with pocket presence. So again, we're just staring at the offensive line. I'm seeing the blitz off the right. So initially my thought is obviously to go left here. And then you guys are going to see half step forward. He gets that disengage animation, but I'm building my momentum forward. Going to be easier for me to sprint and just get out of there. It's pretty simple after you master this too. That's when you just start to read the rest of the field. You're essentially just trying to get that initial feel in the pocket. Once you get that initial feel in the pocket, you're essentially going to then look at your receivers and then try to throw an open receiver. With that being said though, boys, those are my 5 tips that should help you guys massively in terms of improving your passing game.